Fantasy Sports Show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
This is the Inside Fantasy Sport Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, the Supercoach Hawk, sitting here with my co-host, Mickey Dell, the Big Horse. This is a little bit of an Inside Fantasy Sport quick, I guess we could say, from our normal, more diving deep. But we're going to talk DPPs or dual position players, as now the new list has come out for dual position players. How are you, Delly?
Robbie, good. And for the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages watching, listening, tuning in at home or on your way to or from work, it's DPP time. We've told you we're going to bring in exclusive. Here it is. But it's probably not as big as what we first anticipated, mate.
Yeah, there was a lot of chat. Max Gawn, Sam Walsh. There were some possible players that were going to get some big moves. You sent me the text regarding Max Gawn. I'll let you reveal it.
Max Gawn has missed out on DPP by 7 minutes in the forward line. That's it.
That's crazy, eh? It's probably good for the competition, though. I think it's like that just would have been a lock. Now I think people have a little bit of a thought process on what they do. Are some of these that appealing? I think we're going to go through the list. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'm intrigued to get your thoughts. We'll go through it quickly so people can get it out there. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't bring this information. Will go through. Yeah, you go. Anything you want to add?
Just quickly, for those that bought in Maxi Gawn, Sam Walsh, well, Jack McRae ended up getting DPP, but we'll talk about him later. I still think those moves are good moves. So even though some of them may not have paid off in the way of DPP status, don't get too down on yourself if you bought them in, because they're still good quality people where, like for Maxi Gawn, I've got Sean Darcy at the moment. I'm leaning towards holding Darcy, but Gawn is $80,000 cheaper and would free me up to make a big move somewhere else. So, yeah.
Good talking point. I like it. Sam Walsh is a gun. I don't think you can go wrong with Sam Walsh. I think the only iffy one is Gawn. I think it's still iffy with his mate sitting next to him in Grundy. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting one. Anyways, we go through them. They're in team order. They're not in alphabetical order. So we start with Adelaide. Chase Jones, original position being a defender. He's now got defensive mid. I'd like to point out what I look for in DPPs is those who original position was mid and they're now adding something else. So I think the value comes in a bit there. So for me, Chase Jones, let's make this a game. Does this add value, decrease value, or does nothing for you? Let's sort of go through there. Chase Jones, defender, now adds mid.
Yeah, I had him and traded him out. He made me nearly 200K. Adds no value now because he's just not Supercoach relevant.
So Ed Kerno did start with a mid, so this is always interesting. He's added mid forward to him. It's a no-go for me.
No, absolutely not.
Zach Fisher was a forward. He's added mid. Also a no-go for me. I like Zach Fisher a lot. He's one I'll watch what his role is and how he continues to grow, but hasn't quite got Supercoach relevancy just yet.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Although I'm calling it early, you will see him and Chincotta back in the ones this week. Zach Fisher had 41 touches. Chincotta had 32, and both were easily best on ground in the twos.
Yeah, we'll call him Chincotta. You can tag that one in. This one's a little bit more of a talking point. Really intrigued to get your thoughts here. I think he's in your side, so this helps you. We talked about it. I spruiked your ears up when I dropped this name, albeit my same surname. Not my brother, not my cousin. Matthew Kennedy has gone from mid and now added defense into him with a dual position.
Yeah, I like it. It's going to help me to be able to swing some players through mid and defense. Dacos just for one. He's mid defender, isn't he? I think he is anyway. But I've got some other players there that I can swing through defense as well with that added tag of his, which may also enable me to take him back and trade out potentially Angus Brayshaw into a primo as well. So I think with the Carlton outs they've got at the moment, it's going to increase his value because he's going to go back into the midfield. And he does do a good job in there. At times, he does look a little bit lost down back, but given what's he scored 87 and he scored 70 odd on the weekend, it's still serviceable for now. But I'd want to see more production out of him if I'm going to hold on to him for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, he's got a 3-game average of 81, albeit with a 69 that he had against Sydney in the last game. Yeah. I think, as you said, though, the injuries are the interesting one. I think we'll see him maybe get a bit more midfield time, albeit that someone like a Paddy Dow could get a call back up to the ones for the performances he's having in the VFL. But I don't mind it. It's an interesting talking point, albeit that they have Melbourne, Bombers, Gold Coast in the next 3 rounds. So I think he's at least a talking point out of this group. Billy Frampton adds ruck to his already defence. So it's an interesting one with defence ruck. But look, I don't think his scores warrant anything there. I'll talk to you more about Ben Hobbs. So Hobbs has added mid. Where are you at with just Ben Hobbs? I know he's now a mid-forward. It allows you to flip-flop. He already had forward, which is obviously where the value's at. Where is he still in recognition for anyone looking at him as a player?
I wouldn't. Purely because as soon as Parrish comes back, that takes all his midfield minutes. So I like him as a player, and I've been on record before to say that if we were to lose Parrish, it wouldn't be the world's biggest problem for me, given that midfielders are quite easily replaced, and I think we've got a ready-made midfielder there in Ben Hobbs. But for this year, if he continues to play, he's going to average 80. And if you're looking at being in that top 1% at the end of the year, 80 for a forward is just, it's not worth it, and especially for a midfielder.
Yeah, his break-even's not enough to get some cash. All the fact that he's playing North Melbourne and Carlton in the next 2 weeks. So I think it's a no-go now. Xavier O'Halloran has added forward. So mid-forward now. He was an interesting talking point that we had a few weeks ago. Where does he sit in your take now?
Yeah. I would not have a clue what his price is.
So he's at 270, 600. He's got a break-even of 51. He's had only a 3-round average, though, of 51. So when he came out and had a few decent games, he had that 103 against Brisbane. Since then, it's kind of been a bit downhill, 64, 42, 48, 62, 43. It's not much there.
No. The dual position is nice, but given that average, it's a no.
Yep. Fair shout. Lockie Bramble adds midfield from defence. Harrison Petty adds forward, so he's defensive forward. I think they're both no-goes at the moment. Dylan Williams from Port Adelaide, he now adds forward, so he's got defence forward. I'm going to bring him up. From what you've seen, is that at least a talking point?
Not really, no. If you had him earlier on and you've still got him, you're laughing because now you can interchange him with your Sheezels and those sorts of players. Zeeble can interchange them back and forwards. Seaman Mitchell, my boy. It works well, but if you don't have him, you're not bringing him in now.
He's gone up 210,000 from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's had 8 games, and none of them have really been that amazing. He went off on a bit of a run where he went 85, 85, 81, 84, which was nice. But he dropped off last week against Richmond with only a 36. But I think you're right. With that 334 price tag, he's got a break-even now of 73. I think it's a no-go unless you had him originally. Riley Bonner, defender who's added mid. Darcy Byrne-Jones is an interesting one. He's now got that defence forward as well. Would you be looking at him? I'm interested to see how he's going. He's at a 401,000 price tag. He's dropped 58,000 for the year. He's had a 5-round average of 80. I think he's been playing a lot more forward. He's been playing that lock forward role. I just don't think he's doing enough to warrant a 400K price tag.
No, he's not. He's changed his role into a bit of a forward stopper now, getting a bit of ball up forward as well. But again, same as the Ben Hobbs category. If he's going to average 80 at this time of year, especially when next week you've got your mid-season draft with a lot of 102K rookies coming in, save your coin, save your trades. If you want to downgrade, do it then.
Yeah. So Ben Miller at Richmond's obviously grabbed that ruck tag because he's got a little bit more in the ruck, though he's still a 330,000, break even of 82. With Nankervis back, it's an absolute no. We'll punch through the last 3 very quickly before we get to probably the one main talking point. Xavier O'Neill, Luke Edwards, and Anthony Scott, all midfielders who have added forward, but we are not going anywhere near there.
No.
But Jack Macrae has added, as a few of us were pretty aware that this was coming, he's added forward to his midfield status.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it sit for you? He is at 574,800. He's got a break even of 41. He has the bye in round 15, which is obviously the tough week for a lot of people. Where does he sit for you in calculations?
He's going to be a top 6 forward at the end of the year, and this is probably as cheap as you're going to get him. So if you don't have him and you want him, this week's your week. I think if you miss him this week with a break even of 41, and the last 2 weeks he's gone 145, 145, you won't have the coin to bring him in again. So if you're going for the title or you're throwing all your eggs in one basket, do what you can to bring him in this week. I certainly will be looking at doing that as well.
So if he gets a 109 that they've projected, he jumps 30K this week.
So that takes him over 600,000.
So that takes him to 605. They project him then to maybe still go another 5K up to 611. He then might drop a little bit after that. But you're right. He's not going to be at this price tag again. At best, they say he's at this price tag right before finals time, as in, so like round 18, I'm talking finals for Supercoach if you're in some leagues, to possibly drop to 572. But for me, I think you're right. I think people have to take that chance. They need to start looking at what round 15 looks like for them if they can make some moves to get it done. He's the only one that I think comes into calculation, and it might allow you to move a Sheezel or a Zeeble or someone like that down into the back line a bit more. So sadly, it's a bit of an uneventful one, mate. No real major changes. There were some big ones there, but like we said, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't talk about it. Just quickly, how are you looking for buy rounds? Do you have, sorry, this is a question without warning. Are there any thought process that you have for our listeners out there that they should think about, some rules for the buy rounds?
So whether it's well known or not, it's 18 players that score. So they can be all 6 defenders, all 8 mids, 0 rucks, and the rest forwards, and it's still the best 18 scores. You could have 20 on the park and have 20 people score, but Supercoach will deduct your shittest 2 scores. So as long as you've got 18 on the park each round, then you're going to maximize the amount of points that you're going to be able to make through these buy rounds. For me, I need Laird to get off his suspension this week to have 18 on the park. But that'll probably change because I'm going to bring in Eddie Ford from North Melbourne, so I should be right there. The week after, when it's just Gold Coast and Geelong, I'll have 18 on the park. The next week, I've got 18 on the park. The last week at the moment, I've only got 14, which is my biggest issue. So I'll be making some trades in order to correct that after this weekend with the teams that have the bye this weekend and look at players from there.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. I think your last point is the really good one, which is for people to start having a look at after this week, who are the ones that had the bye this week, because you know that they are the ones that you can bring in who don't miss another game for the rest. So Brisbane Lions, Fremantle, St Kilda, Sydney. Look, there are a plethora of players in those teams. Maybe not some really young rookies coming in, but you could take a look at a Nat Fyfe if you need to get in some lower price players to come in. Does Sharp get another game? Things like that as well. But
Callum Mills is on my radar 100%.
Callum Mills is absolutely on the radar as well for a sneaky upgrade without having to pay full primo prices. So look, we'll bring that to everybody. We'll definitely be doing our research over the next couple of days to continue getting you guys ready for those buy rounds. Just quietly, Eddie Ford is 100% the number one player that people are bringing in. I've never seen this so much in my life. I think he's got a break even of about minus 114. He's the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Then Jack Macrae's number 7. Then he's number 8, number 9, and Jack Macrae number 10 as the most traded in and out moves. So, yeah, I think the people have spoken. If you don't bring in Eddie Ford, you're going to get caught behind. Yep. Hopefully that's a nice little bit of information for everyone about DPPs. As we said, not the most riveting list, but we wouldn't do our job if we weren't bringing it to you. This has been the Insight Fantasy Sport Podcast. Peace out.
See ya.